Ultraviolet by As Everything Unfolds. This is the Buckinghamshire Quintet's second studio album, released April 21st via Long Branch Records. Ultraviolet consists of 11 tracks, clocks in at around 36 minutes, and Sam is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's debut LP. Within each lies the other. Which is a great album title. I guess I never appreciated that until now.
I feel like I never appreciated it until now either.
Ultraviolet is also a great album title. And
Strong album title.
If I could give a star rating to an album title, that's at least a solid 4.
What's a 5-star album title to you?
That's the debut one, I think.
Okay. All right. Curious. I actually really like, weird aside, I guess, Ultraviolet as a album title, because I do feel like it has like a weirdly like strong symbolic like tone to just that naming of the album. Like I don't know what it is, but like I just feel like there's some sort of like contextual, like context provided by calling this album Ultraviolet that works for it.
By like definition or aesthetically?
Both. Like I think it's sort of like trails off into like the names of songs as well. Like there's something vibrant and kind of powerful just about like you almost get like a sentiment for like what the song or the album as a whole is trying to communicate just by like how things are named, right? Like they just ultraviolet, blossom, infrared, twilight, daylight, like they just have really like rose bouquets. Like there's just something sort of like colorful or like specific to all of them. And I think it all sort of wraps around and comes back to the name of the album.
It's all very deliberate.
I'm not able to like fully articulate whether there's like a specific symbolism or like concept behind it, but I do feel like I get a certain feeling from it.
Yeah, I think like sensory wise, like obviously the artwork is very purple and violet and all that as well. So I think that as far as the ultimate package goes, this one is it's got, I don't know, it feels boxed up in the right way.
Yeah. I thought this was fucking phenomenal, if I'm being honest with you. I kind of felt similarly about the last album, and I remember when that first dropped, you and I thought it was like a really incredible debut, but I think over the course of the rest of the year it didn't particularly stick with either of us. I think that optimistically and in my mind this album is going to circumvent that. There's something about it that just feel like it just,
on that note,
it seems almost like a better version of that last album, almost like that was them kind of like figuring it out in a way, but like getting pretty close. And this is them just nailing it.
I was going to say the exact same thing, where I feel like, especially upon re-listens later on in the year when we were trying to decide, you know, hey, what makes a top 10 album this year and what doesn't, you went back to that album and it's like, hey, yeah, maybe not as you know, I don't remember this as fondly as I had, and you could sort of pinpoint why. And you were sort of thinking to yourself like, hey, if they improve on these things, there's no reason that this album, the next album, wouldn't then go from good to great.
So now here we are.
Yeah, and it feels like everything that they could have improved on, I think reasonably here they have.
Yeah, they just honestly sound like a much better version of themselves, and they were already a very strong project.
Yeah, I guess the point we're trying to make is that the experience has gone from good to now great.
Yeah.
And it feels very tangible. Like it feels like you can very clearly go back to the last record, the debut album, and again, debut album, right? Mm-hmm. And see everything that did work, everything that didn't, and just it was very clear like what they had to improve upon, right? Like maybe songwriting had like a little bit of tweaking it needed. Choruses maybe needed to get tweaked a little stronger. And I feel like we've come out the other side of this brand new album and they've done just that.
Yeah,
everything's just tighter now.
I really struggled to find anything that I didn't enjoy throughout this. What I think works about this album is that it sounds like it's made up of the bones of a lot of other bands in this scene, but it never really feels like it's mimicking or um being overtly influenced by any of them. Like it still has like a very
Yeah.
unique personality, but one that's like rooted in influence. It's just this band does a very good job of masking all of it with their own personality.
I definitely see what you mean, because every time it felt like I could place my finger on what this band is currently reminding me of, a new sound comes in and sort of washes that away. Like if you're on like a beach, like you're following the footsteps, but you know the water comes in and suddenly that footstep washes away, and it's like I had it on the tip of my tongue. I knew exactly who this reminded me of, but the band switched it up in a fashion that like suddenly I'm just like lost again, right?
Right. They're able to really carve out their own identity with this album, is truly what they do. I think that it's very explosive in a lot of different ways. Like it's one of these albums. It reminds me this. Okay, so this is an influence that I feel like I picked up, but only in a sense that like they are very similarly structured to me in the same way that Holding Absence is, where their songs feel very emotionally powerful and they have like these moments of goosebumps that are just like predicated on like the simplicity of like a line delivery or like a really emotional like instrumental buildup or something like that.
Yeah, there's always like some sort of payoff at some point.
It's not that they sound like that band, but they almost structure their songs and like the way that they feel very similarly.
Well, sonically it is a similar sound in the sense that like if you haven't really been able to pull together what as everything unfolds sounds like yet, I think Holding Absence is an apt comparison, because at the very least it's like post-hardcore that at times goes a little off the deep end into like a heavier territory, but for the most part keeps it reeled in, but is very, it's not afraid to get like a little moodier, a little bit more raw at times as well. I also like some of the decision making here, like Infrared, the interlude right in the middle of this album, gives another good taste to this band, where like just dropping like a really dark brooding instrumental is a nice move that I typically enjoy, and I think they pulled it off fairly well here, and it adds like an extra layer to this album that prior to that song it didn't have, and it's a nice little breather before we get right back into it on the rest of these tracks. And as far as like pacing this album, I think that one adds to this.
Yeah, it's very well constructed, like down to that climactic closer really delivering on everything that came prior. The singles managed to still really stand out. It really was just thoroughly just, I enjoyed it from start to finish. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a little surprising to me almost how good it was. Like I remembered being fond of this band with their debut, but going into this next record, I don't think I really had high expectations. I was just like, okay, it was like, oh, hey, I remember this. Okay, let's check out what they did now. But like, for them to kind of come out of the gate and release what for me almost feels like kind of a landmark release so far this year.
I mean,
and what feels like back-to-back landmark releases for me recently.
We really liked those singles. There was definitely a part of me that was really looking forward to this album. And I feel like maybe that's not the sentiment scene-wide, because, you know, as everything unfolds, there's still like a smaller name. But I think that absolutely an album like this one helps sort of push the
this
the
is
campaign forward, right?
right. Like this is gonna, I really think, thrust their name into the limelight and like really get people paying attention to this project.
For good reason.
I think they come out of the gates with their sophomore release with something that makes a statement, and like they're going to be rewarded for it.
I like that. This album absolutely makes a statement. If you had to rate it, where are we?
I think this is a 4.5 for me.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like I don't know that it quite reaches the highs of the last, you know, couple perfect feeling records that we've had, but it comes close. I have this like almost like this little voice in the back of my head that's telling me to like, okay, well, like what if you have the same relationship you had with this album that you had with the last one, where it's like you don't feel as confident about your like the response you had to it like 6 or 7 months down the road, but like just going off of how I feel right now, like it's an absolute fucking powerhouse of a record, just like one of the best post-hardcore records we've had so far this year. A lot of personality, in honestly better introduction to this band than their debut. Like this truly is them actually like sort of kicking the door down and like establishing themselves.
Yeah, this is, I don't know, this feels like the exact step I wanted to see the band take. It's bigger, it's better, quality is still very much there, and I'm sort of aligned with you in the sense that, like, I guess I understand why, personally for us, we might feel, like, hesitant to be like, yeah, this is one of the best albums of the year, because we kind of thought that way about the debut and then returned to it, and it was like, maybe not. You know, honeymoon period is over. But I think right now I look at this album and I don't have that fear. Same as you. Like I look at it and I'm like, no, I've been doing this for a while. You know, we've been critiquing albums for a while, and this one feels different in that, like, I think it's just genuinely a great album. And that's not to say the debut wasn't in its own right, but I think that this is absolutely an improvement on it. And I think that I really don't expect to not enjoy this one 7 months from now. You know what I mean? Or yeah, 7 months. Or just about. That's when we'd be sitting in this exact same sofa getting ready to
I don't want to think about it right now,
discuss
to be honest.
it. Yeah. I think I really like this album. I think I'm more closer to like a soft 3 point or a hard 3.5, but maybe a soft 4.
Okay.
I really like it. I think I just need to spend more time with it. Like literally, like within the next like week, I would like just to sit down with it a little bit more. I feel like I've only heard every song on here that wasn't a single, like a max of twice. And I think that that's still a pretty good sample size heading into a review, but also I don't want to give you like, hey, this is a 5 and then that be off of the strength of 2 listens, you know?
Right. Like there's just a little bit of trepidation there, in terms of like what I think that holding power will be, but like it's almost like, hey, right now I kind of feel like this is a 5, but I'm gonna settle at a 4.5, which is still one of the best reviewed releases I've had all year.
Totally is.